together at the mountaintop, champions of college football.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a late night bag of recruiting chips episode of The Coach and the Couch Potato. As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we have Coach Slate, whose phone has been going absolutely stupid today. We'll dive into that next week.
Yeah.
We're here to talk recruiting. We've kept telling you guys that we want to start looping you in on the 26 class. We want to try to get out in front of it because we were just talking before we came on here. We think you're going to start to see some commits pop, and we don't want to get caught behind the eight ball. So we want to focus on the Ohio kids tonight.
Yep. Yeah, man. The state of Ohio's got a ton of talent this year, and that's one of the things that really pumps me up. Being a football coach in the state of Ohio, regardless of where the kids come from, you always want to see the Ohio kids shine.
Okay.
Right? You always want, no matter where they come from, what high school they come from, you want to see them shine. And so when you look at the 26 class, man, you see a bunch of national level kids. And we're going to talk about a few of them tonight. And so I'm just excited about this class, man. I think the Buckeyes could really stay in the state of Ohio for a lot of these position groups. So this is a really fun class, and I'm excited to get to chat about them.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to see because of that level of talent.
Yep.
Obviously, the number one player in the state is committed to Illinois, and there were Buckeye fans having a meltdown. Victor Singleton plays for our boy Gene up at TCC. You look through the top 100 national kids, and it's not just blue bloods now.
Yeah.
Maryland has a stud committed.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're a year away, so we'll see. And that's why we want to focus on these Ohio kids because, those kids tend to be the ones that stick.
Yeah.
Class currently sits at 5 commits, 2 of which are not Ohio kids. But we'll dive into those guys right off the bat. Right now, as it sits, this class starts with Chris Henry Jr., who is technically an Ohio kid.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, he is the son of the late Chris Henry, played at West Virginia and for the Bengals. His sister plays basketball at OSU. That's not thrown out there a lot.
No, it's not.
He is actually, I don't know the term. I guess you would just say Pac-Man Jones is his legal guardian.
Yep.
And Pac-Man has done phenomenal, man. Like you see Pac-Man talk about this kid, and it's like he's talking about his own kid.
Yeah.
So transferred to Modern Day, 6'4", 6'5", 205. Did have a knee injury last year, pretty bad one. So he sat out a lot. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Chris Henry Jr.?
Listen, man, this is an embarrassment of riches. If we can get to the finish line with Chris Henry Jr., just like we got to the finish line with Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Day's knees buckling at the podium. It's going to be a similar situation. This guy can name his price if he wants to. And we in every school in the country is going to pay that price, right? We saw the success of Jeremiah Smith. We saw the success of Ryan Williams. Chris Henry Jr. is in that same elk. And so if we can get to the finish line with Chris Henry Jr., you're talking about having, 2 guys, Jeremiah Smith and Chris Henry Jr., on the same roster. That is just a scary thought to think about, having them both on the outside. The potential is just through the roof. Obviously, he's going to have to rehab that knee, get back 100%, but he's got all the physical tools. Obviously, if you remember his father was just a naturally gifted freak of nature. And some of the things he did in Cincinnati in a short period of time was just out of this world. And so I think if we can get him to Columbus, he's got a lot of suitors, Oregon being one of them. Oregon got Phil Knight money. They got Nike money. They're going to throw everything at him. But this is a special generational type player that I think is going to, garner a lot of attention. A lot of money is going to be thrown at him. And so the Buckeyes are going to have to do a lot. Ryan Day and Brian Hartline are going to have to do a lot to make sure they keep him in the fold.
Now, I do think it's going to be similar to the JJ recruitment. As long as those two are here,
yep,
I think it's fine. The sleeper in this entire situation is West Virginia.
Good
With
call.
Rich Rod being back,
Good call.
the alumni are pushing. And some of those dudes have some cheddar.
Good
They
call.
don't have Phil Knight money, but that's the sleeper.
Good call.
Obviously, you got to get a quarterback.
Yeah.
At this point, if I'm Julian saying, and I'm looking ahead, Jeremiah Smith and Chris Henry Jr., like Julian saying stock to the moon.
Yeah.
And he was the first commit to the class.
Yeah.
So then, staying out of state, we go Corbin Fordham, tight end from Jacksonville, 6'3", 215, 18th ranked tight end in the country, which is really almost the ceiling for Ohio State tight end recruiting, just because you don't use them a lot.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm still a big Jeremy Ruckert fan, and we didn't start using Jeremy Ruckert until it was too late.
Yeah. And you see that a little bit with some of the things that are coming out already with Max Clare and Will Kazmarek, right? Will Kazmarek is going to take on that Luke Farrell role where he's going to be an inline blocker. He's going to catch, maybe 20 to 25 passes at most. And Max Clare is going to be that the receiving tight end that's split out a little bit more. And Ohio State's going to have to really work to get him the ball. He didn't come to Ohio State to not catch the football, right? And so that's one of the things that Ohio State is going to have to show these tight end recruits that they are getting, that they are actually going to throw them the ball.
Yep.
And they're going to have 30, 40 receptions in a season, if not more. And so when you get these, lower rated guys, and I say that he's still, a composite 4-star and 24/7, he's a very talented player. He's got to get a little bigger, but he's a very athletic dude. He's a very good pass catcher. It's a lot of things that he can do well, but until we actually show that we're going to get him the ball, this is where we are going to be with our tight end recruiting, which is fine. I think Coach Key does a really good job of getting the most out of that room, no matter who he has. And that's okay. I think our tight end room is stacked right now. And so I think he'll be coming in, he'll have time to develop and get bigger. And so I think this is a guy who's going to come in, and I think he could be something, but again, if you want to get the bigger name tight ends, you got to actually show that you're going to get them the ball.
Yeah. And one thing, just real quick, what I'm excited to see with Max Clare this year is Ohio State used the running backs a lot last year as that third and fourth option.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Peoples and Donaldson are those kind of guys. So I think Clare could slot in behind JJ and Carnell.
Yeah, I agree.
As that third option. So then we go to staying on the offensive side of the ball, Jaden Ricketts. He is from Watkins Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a kid that we hit on just a hair when he committed, just because this kid is fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, to me, every receiving core needs a blazer. They need somebody who can take the top off the defense. That is one of the things that intimidates defensive coordinators the most, right? Yep. You have a guy like a J.J. Smith, who's a really big, physical, imposing guy who can take the top off the defense. But if you also have another guy that's lining up in the slot that you have to worry about, that can really attack you down the middle of the field, and you have to worry about him being one-on-one with a safety, running post and running corners, and can my safety keep up with him? Man, that is a nightmare to have to think about. And so this is not necessarily a highly ranked kid, but a kid who has physical traits that have a specific need in our offense, right? We were hoping that Jaden Ballard was going to be able to kind of hit that mold for us. We were hoping that Jamison Williams was going to be able to hit that mold for us. I think Jaden Ricketts can do that. He's a developmental guy, right? He's got a lot of work to do. He actually played a lot of defense for Watkins Memorial this past season, but I think he's a guy who has a specific trait that has potential to be elite, and that is his speed. And so that is something that Coach Hartline's really going to have to refine. And I think in the age of NIL, you're going to see us really focus on these guys who are really good at one specific thing, because you're not going to get the days of us getting Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and all these 5-star recruits in the receiving class. I don't know if those days are going to happen anymore, right? We are very fortunate. I don't know if those are going to consistently happen all the time. So you're going to have to take chances on the Jaden Ricketts. And I think Jaden Ricketts has all the potential in the world. And I think he's coming into a room where he can learn and grow. Very similar to Bryson Rogers as well, as far as like the development, underrated kid. And so I think this kid, man, he's got top end speed, man. Oh my gosh, just watch his film. He is a freaking burner. And so this kid's got so much potential. Devin Smith, tracking down the deep ball.
Yep. Well, and I think you're going to see Mylan Graham in that role.
Buddy. Oh yeah.
Because you have to be able to route run in that position. Everybody thinks take the top off, and they think just go ball.
Oh yeah.
Go ball.
Yeah.
And it's not. You create more space with a corner and out, a post. So it'll be interesting to see. And then obviously a guy that we were both stoked about, Maxwell Riley, the big offensive tackle from up in Avon Lake. There's nothing else you can say about this kid. He is violent, and I loved the clip that our guy Carson put together. And that was one of the first things that, the comments were coming in, man, this kid finishes a block. That's what you want is, playing O-line's not sexy. There's nothing sexy about it. But if you put a defender on their ass, or you send them to the school bus like Michael Orr, second Michael Orr reference in 2 episodes, by the way. Big fan of the blind side, though. So, but that's Maxwell Riley.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And one of the things I love about Max Riley is, like you said, he finishes the blocks. Obviously everybody knows how, had the opportunity to coach Luke Montgomery. One of the things that always stood out about Luke, he was still learning how to play the offensive line position. Yep. It's crazy to think about, man. He's only been playing offensive line for 4 years. Like, he's not been doing this his whole entire life. And so he was a freak athlete, and he finished blocks. He didn't always necessarily know how to do it, but man, he would punish people, right? If he got his paws on you, you were in the dirt. Like, that was happening. And so that is one thing that college offensive line coaches want to see. Can you finish blocks? And how good are your feet? Can your feet move? Can I trust you to get to the second level? And that's what you see with Max Riley. And so that position versatility that he provides, man, he's not the tallest guy to be an offensive tackle. He's listed at 6'5", but he doesn't have to be. And the guys on the podcast daily brought up such a good point. It's okay if we don't have the 6'7" and 6'8" tackles. Donovan Jackson proved to us that we don't need that prototype tackle. All right. We don't necessarily need that prototype tackle. We need the guys that are versatile enough to be able to do both, bottom line. Right. And Max Riley fits that mold to a T. And so this is a guy who's got the athleticism. He's got the mean streak. And so he's got to get a little bit stronger. But this is a dude, man, who was a must get, along with somebody else we're going to talk about it here in a little bit that I also think is a must get. And so this kid is a complete package. Once he gets a little bigger and a little stronger, I definitely think he'll see the field pretty early at Ohio State.
And then to wrap up the commits, we pivot to the defensive side of the ball. The Lone Ranger at this point.
Yeah.
Jacob Weatherspoon, a kid that you're stoked about.
Yeah, man. Listen, anytime you can get, obviously I'm crazy about any defensive back that we sign. But Jacob Weatherspoon is a position versatile kid in the back end. He can play corner. He can play free safety. He can play nickel. He can play strong safety. He's not afraid to hit. He's very fast. He's got ball skills. He's got the total package. I think he's a kid that you're looking at that's going to be in that Lathan Ransom type role. He could play in the nickel. I think you could use him very similar to how they're looking at using Bryce West this year, floating between that nickel, that Jordan Hancock type role as well. And so this is a kid who I think can do that. And I think, getting a kid like him in the fold very early was good, because I think his recruitment was going to blow up. I think he was going to get even bigger. And so getting him early was very nice. And so I think Jacob Weatherspoon is a very, 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 very good player, comes from a great program. Like to see him get a little bigger. He's listed at 172 pounds. We need to see him get a little bigger, but this is a kid who I would put in that same mold as Jordan Hancock, who could provide, corner depth. He could provide nickel depth. He could roll back as a safety. And so this is a kid I'm very, very excited about, man. And again, the state of Ohio providing so many athletes at so many different spots. And this kid is one of the top ones in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's kind of weird that there's only 5 commits, but you're 9 months from signing day. Visits have been going crazy this week. You've got the official visit window during the summer. So that's going to change. And now that we're looping you guys in on some of these kids, we'll be able to throw those nuggets in there on opening drive episodes and that type of thing. So the next group we wanted to kind of address are the Ohio kids who I'm going to say are most likely going to be Buckeyes. All of these kids have offers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 6 that have offers. We'll start right off the bat. Number 3 ranked player in the state, Akron Hoban, defensive back, corner, Albert Hill, 5'10", 175, has kind of put his name out there because he kind of left Ohio State off of his recent visit list. Albert Hill's playing the NIL game.
Oh, yeah.
It is what it is, and rightfully so, because the kid's good.
Yeah. Listen, there are some purists out there who think if you're an Ohio kid, you need to play the game, or you don't need to play the game. You need to just respect the fact that Ohio State is recruiting you. It's a hometown school. Like, I get it. But I think people need to understand this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Nothing is guaranteed beyond this point.
Nope.
Right? Albert Hill may never get this opportunity again. Albert Hill may never amount to be more than maybe a 6th or 7th round pick in the NFL. Right? Those are things that aren't guaranteed. But what he can control right now is his asking price.
Yep.
He can, and I hate saying that. I hate putting it that way, but that's what college football is right now.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. It bothers me to say that, but he can control that right now. And so, hey, Ohio State, if you want me to stay home, maybe you should pay me a little bit more. Maybe you should offer me a little bit more. That eats me up. It literally is making my palms sweat to even say, but those are things that they're allowed to do. Now, that is us assuming. We don't know that that's what Albert Hill is doing. Right? We really don't know. Maybe he's actually just trying to work out some scheduling conflicts and all those different things. We don't know, but there's a good chance that he's playing the NIL game, and that's okay. He's allowed to do that, and he's a nationally recognized kid. He's one of the top cornerbacks in the state. Every school in the country should want him. He's a dog. I mean, he's a stud. Whether he goes to Ohio State, Oregon, Clemson, whatever school he decides to go to, he's going to be a very, very good player, an impactful player for whatever program he goes to. And so, do we want him to be a Buckeye? Heck yes, I want him to be a Buckeye. I think he would fit in with Coach Walton in that group well. I think he would fit in so well. I think he's got some swagger to him. He comes from a winning program with a ton of tradition. He knows what it takes to be a winner. And so, I want him to be a Buckeye. But again, when you're one of the top players in the nation, you can kind of play the NIL game. And that's what we think that's what he's trying to do. And, it is what it is. And hopefully we think that he will still likely end up a Buckeye. But if he doesn't, it is what it is, man. We're not going to go chasing and paying bags to all these kids who don't necessarily want to be here. But we want him to be here. I can tell you that much, because he's one of the best players in the country. And if he ends up a Buckeye, he's going to be a dog for us.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is, you hit the nail on the head. If your game doesn't translate to the league, but now you can make money, you have earned that right.
Yeah.
So when I use the term NIL game, and we've made no bones about this for a year and a half. Anybody that knows me, I'm all about the players.
Yep.
So play the game, dude. That is your God-given right. You have earned it. And, the other thing that I think that is this is a kid who I don't think Ohio State would have slow rolled in the past, but they would have just been like, oh, whatever. We can make up the ground if there's ground to be made up.
Yeah.
So those days are long gone.
Yeah.
And then, you move on, staying in Northeast Ohio. There's a very Northeast Ohio flavor to the class this year. Sincere Johnson, a kid that we gave a shout out to last week. 6'3", 225 linebacker from the Tar Blooders of Glenville. I don't know that he stays as a linebacker because he's long.
Yeah,
man, this kid is a thumper.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a 7-on-7 when I was at Findlay. We had a 7-on-7 scrimmage with them, and Sincere, I believe, was a freshman, and he was out there with the varsity, and we're looking at this kid, and we're like, man, this guy he's massive, and Coach Ginn, he's only a freshman, he's got a lot to learn, but man, he's got potential to be good. We're just like, he's a freshman. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like. And so this is a kid, man, who is, like you said, long list of Tar Blooders and Buckeye lore, Buckeye history. To me, he's the next one. He's a stud. This is a kid who I would label for the Buckeyes as a must get. He can do everything as a linebacker, sideline to sideline. He's a thumper. He could go be a rush defensive end if you needed him to be. He's a great blitzer. Like he can do it all. And so this is a guy who I think the Buckeyes got to do whatever it takes to get in this class. I personally don't think the Buckeyes need to leave the state of Ohio at all for a linebacker in the 26th class. I think him and the next guy we're going to chat about, I think Sincere is one of the top ones in the country. And so if we can lock him up and then these other two guys, I think we're set at linebacker. And so Sincere is one of the guys that I think is a must get for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on. And I don't think they intend to leave the state.
Yeah.
So we will pivot and go to a name you actually threw out to me that we talked about right before because Alex Geitman put in an RPM for him, and that's Storm Miller from Strongsville.
Yeah.
Another, 6'3", 220. I don't know a ton about him, but he is also the brother of Clemson offensive lineman Blake Miller. That's quite a contrast. Normally, like you look at the Styles brothers, you got a wide or a linebacker and a corner.
Yeah.
And, the Eichenbergs, you had an O lineman and a linebacker. So I guess that's a similar comparison.
Yeah.
And so, Storm Miller, that prototypical linebacker build again.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's a thumper, man. Again, comes from a great program. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, could get a little bit bigger. But like you said, prototypical linebacker, he can do it all, sideline to sideline. He could play tackle to tackle. He's not going to be afraid to thud you up. Again, I don't think Ohio State needs to leave the state of Ohio. I wish I wasn't on my iPad. I've got his highlights up right now, and I wish I could share my screen. But just looking at his tape, man, he had 90 tackles. This year, he had 20 plus sacks. Like the kid could just do it all. He's pretty good in coverage, rangy kid. He can just do so many different things. Type of kid that you get him on campus, very similar to Gabe Powers, right?
Yeah.
Very, rangy kid. Get him to camp. He's going to get a little bigger, and he's going to be able to do a lot for you. I know obviously Gabe didn't work out here, but we all know the physical tools that Gabe had. And so I think Storm has got a very, very high ceiling, and I think James Laurinaitis sees that. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll stay with the linebacker trend, and I'm just going to let you take this one.
Yeah. The last linebacker is my guy, CJ Santa. Listen, he, is at Olentangy High School, 6'3", 225 pounds, legitimate 6'3", legitimate 225 pounds. I had the opportunity to coach the linebackers this past year at Olentangy High School, and CJ had never played linebacker before. He was a defensive end, and so he was learning the position, and this was it was a learning experience for him. And man, once the game slowed down for him, it was probably about week 2 of camp. It was night for everybody. I'm sorry, there's no other way to describe it. Once the game slowed down and he just started playing ball, it was something special to see. This kid, sideline to sideline, shot out of a cannon, plays with a sense of urgency, position versatility through the roof. I'm talking legitimate CJ Hicks type traits when it comes to being able to be a rush type defensive end, a natural true Mike linebacker, but could slide and play out in space if you needed him to. I think, the 225, I see him getting to about 235, 240 and being still very fluid and very fast. Nationally recognized shot and discus thrower. So he's just a freak of nature, man. And so this is a kid. This is not going to be an easy recruitment. He is obviously his recruitment's really taken off. He's a big fan of James Laurinaitis, but he's got a lot of ties to the University of Pitt. He's got is it University of Pitt or Pittsburgh University, whatever it is. He's got a lot of ties to Pitt. He's very real about his recruitment. He knows what he wants. He's a meathead. He wants to play football. He's not playing the NIL game. He just wants to be around people that love him and good relationships. And so that's what's important to him. And he knows what he's after. And so I'm excited for him, man. Wherever he goes, I'm going to buy a polo and I'm going to be rocking it. But we'd love to see him be a Buckeye because this kid is special and his best football is ahead of him, man. Because like I said, this was his first year playing linebacker. And so first year playing linebacker and he's got a Buckeye offer. So the sky is truly the limit for CJ, man. Everything you want in a football player and a person.
Yeah, absolutely. You showed me a text message from him this week, and that is all I needed, man. Like the way that kid spoke about you is not something you can teach a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, his parents done a great job, man. It's a great kid.
So not only is the kid a ball player, the kid's a good kid.
Yeah.
And but he's got that ability on Friday night or on Saturday afternoon, whatever, when the lights come on, it's go time. See ball, hit ball.
Yeah.
So I hope to hell we get him. I'm excited. You told me about him a little bit before his recruitment blew up. And, so you start to look at these things and yeah, the kid's fun to watch.
Yeah, he's pretty good, man. It's pretty good.
Another name that just got his offer this week, and actually gets the OSU offer and trims his list to a final 3, like boom. And Favor Akeem, from Delaware Hayes, 6 foot 190 running back. This talk about recruitments that have exploded. This kid, the question all week has been, trying to figure out the history of him because nobody had really known him until this year.
Yeah. Like I said, we scrimmaged Delaware Hayes this past year in a 7-on-7, and we saw 7-on-7 running backs don't really get to do much, and so he didn't really stand out in the 7-on-7. But as we were preparing for Olentangy Liberty in our first game, we're watching the film, and they had scrimmaged Delaware Hayes, and we're like, man, this running back is kind of giving Liberty some fits. And Liberty, obviously state champs, one of the best defenses in the state. It's running backs, man. He's giving us some trouble. And we're like, who is this kid? He's really good. And then, we see Delaware Hayes running back gets this offer. Delaware Hayes running backs gets this offer. And so then we're like, where did this kid, where did he come from? Like, we had no idea. And so then you see, he's getting all these offers and boom, gets the Ohio State offer. And then we just finally get some backstory about him. And so kid's a special athlete, man. Special athlete, the community of Delaware Hayes in general, it's a great community. They're going to rally around him. Obviously, We would like to see him be a Buckeye. Anytime we can get a Central Ohio kid, to be a Buckeye, that's great. Coach Locke really likes this guy. And I think Coach Locke really pushed for this offer. I really do. I think he really pushed for it, and he had to get on campus for Coach Day to offer him. But I think Coach Locke really pushed for it. And so if Coach Locke is good with it, I'm good with it. Obviously, we've talked about there's some other factors that may play into this, but if he could end up a Buckeye, that would be great. So if Coach Locke is all about it, we're Locke boys over here, so we can be all about it too.
Yeah, I mean, before he got the OSU offer, all the momentum was with Miami. He's going to Miami. He's going to Miami, and then USC is the other school in the final 3. I have been told by some people in the Delaware community that USC's a real threat. Like you said, the Delaware community, man, those people are great. They wrap their arms around their players. I don't care what sport it is. But I think at the end of the day, I think he ends up at OSU. We'll see. So those are kind of the 6 that I would say, gun to my head, Ohio kids that end up at Ohio State. And obviously there's going to be others. You saw it with Bogpen Miller. You saw it with Jake Cook. Guys are going to get a chance to earn an offer, especially with this 105 number now.
Yeah.
So then we threw together a list of 3 guys who are the fringe, I guess you would say. Actually, wait a minute.
Yeah, don't forget Sam Greer.
I was going to let you take Sam because I know how much Sam Greer means to you.
Oh, man. Listen, that kid, I should have never watched his basketball highlights. I should have never watched his basketball highlights. He's a must get. And Max Riley was a must get. This kid is a must get. I am going, if I'm Coach Bowen, I'm going all in. Whatever it takes to get this kid. I know we got some big name, Cantwell and Ojo and all these nationally ranked guys. And it'd be great if we can land one of them, but they can wait. We've got to get this kid. His upside is through the roof, a true offensive tackle. A slim down version of DeJuan Jones. Like I think he's got that type of ability when it comes to his athleticism and his feet, but he's not like he's 6'7", but he's not 360 pounds, 310 pounds. Right. And so you're talking about a massive individual who has that background of playing basketball, and he's just got that athleticism is just through the roof. And once he gets that strength, you're talking about a guy who has potential to be a first-round tackle. Like a first-round true offensive tackle. To me, must get. You got to make it happen, Coach Bowen. So, listen, I know you've been killing it out there. I know you've been working on that relationship. You got 2 guys here on the Coach and the Couch Potato that believe in you. So we gotta make this happen, man. Because Sam Greer's he's that guy. So I want to see him. I want to see him in a Buckeye uniform.
Sam Greer's him. Like, if you were impressed, I understand DeJuan Jones is a massive man, but that was what stood out to everybody was DeJuan Jones basketball tape.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you right now. Athletically, Sam Greer has the potential. Outside of Jimmy Simmons, who your guy Luke compared to Trent Williams. He might be the most athletic tackle Ohio State's had in an insane amount of time.
Yeah.
It just, I hate to use the word, gotta have him because I've always been a we'll figure it out kind of guy. But Sam Greer is him. You need Sam Greer in this class in Columbus.
Yep.
So yeah, now we're gonna go back to time in. The 3 guys who I think 2 of the 3 will for sure end up with Ohio State offers. The third one is just in that weird spot because of the position he plays.
Yeah.
So 2 of them are offensive linemen. We'll start with the legacy. Mason Wilhelm, 6'4", 285, interior line from St. Ed's. Matt Wilhelm's son, who, again, Matt Wilhelm, you watch Matt Wilhelm and you're like, okay, this guy's just a linebacker.
Yeah.
Matt Wilhelm was a stud.
He was a stud, man. He was a stud. He was fun to watch.
Mason, he's got offers from almost the entire MAC. Vanderbilt. You kind of hit on it. I think at one point his name came up on an episode, and you compared him to Jake Cook as far as the trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, man. And I think Mason he's going about the process the right way. I really do. I think he is. Side note, this is football coach talking right now. All the recruits out there, if you have aspirations of playing college football and you are expecting your high school coach to help you get your name out there, obviously go to your high school coach. They should be helping you. If they're not, then we've got bigger problems we need to talk about, right?
Yep.
That's number one. But number two, you also need to be helping yourself, right?
Yep.
We need to start learning how to market ourselves. We need to start learning how to brand ourselves and put ourselves out there. If you need to do that, or you need to learn that, I implore you to go follow Mason Wilhelm on Twitter, all right, or on X, because this guy does a great job of marketing himself, and not in a cheesy way, in a way that shows the hard work that he puts in and everything that applies to the game of football. And he does it in such a good way. And obviously he's got a father who did this at a high level, played in the NFL as well. So he's got somebody in his corner who's really helping him. He works with Charles Bentley. So he's got resources that not everybody has. I totally get that, but he does a great job of marketing himself. And listen, I think he's a player. Comes from St. Ed's. Obviously, we've got the Armstrong twins. We've got Alex Boone went to St. Ed's. There's a
Nate
lot
Oliver.
Nate Oliver went to St. Ed's. There's a lot of Buckeyes who have gone through St. Ed's. And so I think this is a kid who eventually ends up in the class. He's got versatility, can play center, can play both guards. I think, he comes to Ohio State and as a fifth-year senior that ends up starting as a center, right? That's something that I could see in his trajectory. And so this is a kid I'm rooting for him to get the Buckeye offer because I know how much that would mean to him and his family.
Yeah, and he's got good size. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of times those fringe O linemen lack size, one way or the other, height or weight. But on the inside, you can get by at 6'4", and 285 in high school, get to Ohio State, bump up to 305. It's there. So I think you'll see him earn an offer. Another kid who you told me about actually that I had not followed a lot, Landry. I'm gonna butcher his last name. Is it Breed?
I think it's Breed. I think it's Breed. Offensive tackle, offensive guard from Minner. I actually only came across his name because of Bill Krulik from Bucknuts. I know this was a guy that Tyler Bowen or Coach Bowen was in contact with after he first got the job. You turn on this film, there's a mean streak. This kid plays with a chip on his shoulder, man. He plays the game mad. And again, we talk about a lot of offensive linemen. Why? Coach Bowen is casting the widest net I've seen us cast with an offensive line. And I believe it was Jeremy Birmingham brought up such a good point today. Maybe it was yesterday. I can't remember. So I want to make sure I'm giving him the credit. But when you cast this wide net, obviously you're not going to get everybody on the first go around. But man, in 2 years, if they hit the portal, after having 2 successful years at a Virginia Tech or at a Vanderbilt, and you were recruiting them, they remember that, right?
Yep.
And so that is something that I want people to think about. And so these are the type of kids that we may not be actually offering, but they're those fringe guys that could potentially earn an offer, or down the road, they could be jumping in the portal after having some success and ending up at Ohio State. And so Landry Breed is a kid who we should keep on the radar in case we miss out on some of those national kids. And, Coach Bowen is like, hey, this is a kid who I think can develop into something. Again, selfishly, I don't think we need to leave the state of Ohio for much. I think a lot of what we need is already here, but I totally get the idea of leaving the state, building and casting out that net so that we can continue to build that national footprint.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the net we're casting. That was my big beef with Justin Fry. So the third kid, I don't know. This is just a gut feeling kind of scenario because it's almost like a perfect fit in a way. Because in the 26th class, Ohio State's in a weird spot quarterback-wise. You have, obviously, Tavian St. Clair in the 25 class. You have your 27 quarterback already. It's going to be hard to get a 26.
Yeah.
But Ohio, Billy Fessler's doing the dang thing. Like, you hear guys talk about him already, but I don't know that, there was a quarterback on campus this week from Texas. There's the kid, I cannot think of his name, who is contemplating taking the mission, the Church of Latter-day Saints mission. But so that makes me come back to a guy who our Marion Harding faithful that listen got to see up close and personal this year. And I think they're on the schedule this year as well.
Yep.
So spoiler alert to the opening drive. This is a guy Coach Slate's going to know a lot about by September. Nathan Bernard from Ashland.
Yeah.
6'5", 227. I didn't realize how impressive his offer list was.
Yeah.
Duke, Indiana, Louisville, Michigan State, Penn State, West Virginia, and the best women's bowling team in college, Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
Which no slouch of a football program though.
No, heck no.
They've got a beast of a tight end, Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner's son.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Bernard can sling the rock.
He can, man. And Ashland's done a good job of building that offense around him. They're 4 or 5 wide every play, and they spin it. He's a big kid. He's got a strong arm. He's got a quick release. He's very athletic, sneaky athleticism.
Yes.
He's a lot faster than you think. He's not necessarily shifty, but he's a big guy. He can run through you. He's got good speed. He's really got a lot of what you would want in a quarterback. Size-wise, we talked over the summer, comparable to Will Howard as far as what he could project to be. I think he's a good player. I've already watched probably, half hour to 45 minutes of his film just to get to know, obviously, the defense and then get to know what type of player he is. But he's a really good player. And again, you're not going to stack 5-star, 5-star, 5-star,
Nope.
5-star, 5-star. Those days are over. Maybe they're not. Maybe we will be able to do it. I don't know, but I just think it's unlikely. And so this is a kid, man. He's got the talent. You could bring him in. He could redshirt or whatever. I think he could develop and be really good. Whatever we decide to do, I trust Ryan Day. I trust Coach Fessler.
Oh, yeah.
If he is the offer that, if he gets the offer, he accepts it. I think he could be a really good player for us, man. He's got the size, he's got the arm strength, he's got the athleticism. Hey, come in and compete, man. And so I think this is a really good player, comes from a really good program. And so if he's the guy, man. I love having the quarterbacks from the state of Ohio.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the now defending Division I state boys bowling champions.
Okay.
And they got some studs. Just like they got some studs on the football field. They got some studs on the lanes too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see though. The quarterback position is so hard to recruit, and that's why I think you're going to see that. You kind of saw it. A lot of people looked at Lincoln Keenholz as that kind of bridge guy, but I'm telling you, Lincoln Keenholz is built different. So yeah, that kind of is just we didn't even get into the family size bag of chips. That's like the
snack pack.
That's the bag you pick up with your Tubby's pizza.
Yeah.
But we wanted to throw that out there for you guys. There's a lot of moving parts there. That's the kind of midweek episodes we like to do during the off season, as you guys know. So we will keep throwing that out there. Shout out to the Barn Baseball and Softball Academy, Cornerstone Home Remodeling. Shout out to Coach Slate. Like I said, we'll dive in a little bit deeper this coming on the opening drive. By the time you guys hear this, Slate's put some news out there. Awesome week ahead. March Madness, full effect. We definitely will have some stuff to talk about on the opening drive, though. Our friends up north got a little bit of some developments up there today. Not on Stallions front, but we'll get this up. And if you guys have any questions on recruits or anything, let us know. Anybody you want us to dive into, we love watching film. It's what we do. But with that, I got nothing else.
That's all I got, man.
All right, we will see you guys for an opening drive next week.